What's up, everybody? We are live. How are you guys doing? This is your boy J-Lat, the comedian. Um, well, we are on my third episode of J-Lat's another podcast. That's right, another comedians podcast. Uh, that I hope you'll listen to. I know there's a lot of us out here doing podcasts, so um, give it some time. I know you got like 20 other comics you promised to listen to, uh, but I promise you this will be a good one. All right, because we talk about things that are important, and I think stuff that needs to be said that isn't being said, that's being afraid to be said. Um, our thoughts, our minds, and our hearts. I think I think this country is getting a little bit away from us. Um, I think we're divided. I think we're not listening to each other, and I think we're getting a little irrational here. Speaking of irrational, give you a little update on what's going on. Our president of the United States just gave a conference, just an angry speech. He didn't take no questions or nothing like that. He just did like a very angry speech. Um, Questioning the integrity of our election system because he's losing. Only, it's because he's losing. No other reason. Because he's losing. Now we're cheating. No evidence of it, but we're cheating him because we are counting votes. So if you're not paying attention, keeping up, here's what the election stands as now. So Biden has about 258. Trump has about 212. I didn't write those numbers down, but that's about it. There's about 5 states that are still in play. They're still counting the votes. Right as of now, President Trump is ahead in Pennsylvania by 64,286 votes. There are still votes to be counted in the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh areas, which means that's his ass. Arizona. Now, Arizona's kind of interesting. Arizona had Biden up, and Trump has been catching up. Very little, but also, Arizona, Biden is up by 58,953 votes. But again, these are outstanding votes that are being tallied in the Phoenix area. So that might be hard for Trump. It's possible he could catch up in Arizona. They're still looking at it. I'm gonna save the best for last. Nevada. Nevada's weird. They're going by a really weird time schedule. 11,000 votes, 11,483 votes. Biden is up ahead of. They're not really doing anything. So this has been the same like all day. Nevada is like, I guess they're counting chips more. I don't know. You would think like Nevada would be like, have those numbers down like right away. Like, like if you owe them money, they probably have that money. I don't know. It's Nevada, it's Vegas. Like, come on, you guys should be good with numbers over there. Anyway, North Carolina. Uh, well, a lot of people called this for Trump, but CNN still hasn't called this for Trump, so they still have it as a toss up. And Trump is up by 76,701 points. I don't know where North Carolina they're finding these votes at. I'm guessing they're mail-in votes in Democratic cities, so maybe that's why. I don't know if he'll catch up, if Biden will catch up in North Carolina. And saving the best for last, Georgia, the state of Georgia. Trump is up by only 3,486 votes, and they still are getting votes in from the Atlanta metropolitan area. Yes, Atlanta. That's going to be a wrap soon because it's Atlanta. Other places too, I think Savannah, the urban metropolitan areas of Georgia. That's where the votes are coming in. So there's a chance Joe Biden might win Georgia. Georgia had a Confederate flag on their state flag about 15 years ago. That's how far we've come along. Georgia, stand up, guys. You guys did a great job. Give yourselves a round of applause. All my friends from Atlanta area, Georgia, give yourselves a round of applause. Y'all came through. So that's where we stand now. All right, so let's get to it. Let's get to our first guest. Well, our only guest I've invited to the show. This lady here. I've enjoyed the program, Atheist Experience. I used to watch it a lot. I love the show. I love the debates they have with the callers. She is a former host of the Atheist Experience. She's also the former co-host of Godless Bitches. I love that title. Yeah. So if you are one who clutches your crosses and your pearls and your crosses, get us some holy water, all right, to spray it on your computer because we're going here. I'm going with some of my old stomping grounds here, which I still watch. I still watch Atheist Experience. Oh, and also a former director of the atheist community of Austin, Texas. Yeah, Texas. Oh man, we got close in Texas too. So we got a Texan in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the lovely Miss Tracie Harris. All right. A little sound effects thing. Guys, I'm going to get a better switchboard. I'm going to be able to do more shit on my switchboard, like get applauses and stuff like that. How you doing, Tracie? Can you hear me good?
Hey.
All right. Wow. Thank you for coming on, first of all. Thank you so much. First of all, how is it out there in Texas? Is it...
Yeah, I guess there's like a couple things going on here. Like I'm looking at the live feed and then I'm also getting you live. And so I'm trying to figure out how to stop the live feed from being in.
Oh yeah, you're looking at my Facebook live feed.
I'm just going to close that.
Yeah, just close that. You got a front row seat now.
Okay. You're coming through on my computer, which is really weird because I thought you would be coming through the headset.
It's like when people call on the radio and they play the radio while they're talking to the person on the radio. They're going to get a feedback loop. It's going to be a loop. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have headphones on, so it's going to be okay for me. It's just that the sound is coming out of my computer, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, that's the loop. You're going to get that loop. Yeah, it's like two mirrors looking at each other. It's going to, like back. So how are things in Texas? What's it like out there? I'm in New Jersey. It's, we're usually one-sided when it comes to politics, but we have some Trumpers out there that they blocked up the parkway out here, which is a major highway. How is it out there in Texas?
Well, we had, like everybody else, I guess, really amazing turnout. So there was wildly huge turnout at early voting. And then all through the elections, we had just, great presentation. Where I live is in Austin, so it's actually kind of a liberal hotspot in.
It's the Oregon of Texas, right?
Yeah. So we're not that conservative here, although it's somebody described it to me one time because I was trying to explain it, and I was just like, because people are like, oh, it's so liberal in Austin. I'm like, well, it's kind of liberal for, and then somebody interjected and they're like, it's sort of like liberal for white people. And I was like, hey, that's
Oregon, right?
Great way to put it, right?
Yeah,
so
Oregon,
it's this sort of it's interesting because it's this kind of place where you'll see gay couples openly walking down the street and everything's fine, but at the same time you'll see some sort of violence against gays in the news every now and then downtown. So it's like a mixed bag here, really.
Yeah, a lot of people, like, I'm from Jersey. I just got hip to Austin because there's no sports team, no major sports teams out of Austin. And we think of Texas, we think of Houston, Dallas, San Antonio because of the football teams, and maybe El Paso, that's like a whole nother country to y'all. I know that. But Austin is very liberal. I think I found out through the Atheist Experience, like, what? Wow.
Yeah.
It's very. But what I meant by how's Texas is, how are the Trump supporters doing? Like, is there any kind of clashes? Is it nervousness out there?
Well, I mean, you were on my election night kind of hangout
Mm-hmm.
for a bit, and I think I talked a little bit about how very quiet it was. And I think there was one article that I posted. It wasn't even in Texas. It was like another state where some ex GOP representative, or not, I'm sorry, like candidate, I guess he was,
Mm-hmm.
ended up getting hauled away by the cops from one of the polls because he wouldn't leave and had his gun, and he was just like, whatever. But
What?
yeah, but they took care of it. I just had posted it as a link in the feed because I was just like, okay, so this was the one piece of unrest that I saw on election night, which was pretty mild considering what some people were fearing might happen. And then I think in the next few days, what all I've seen
Yeah.
really is other states where they've had an issue of a few people, or I guess a few areas where groups of people have gone to the polls and started trying to chant to stop the
Yeah.
voting. We were talking about that a little earlier.
Stop the vote. Yeah. Stop the counting. Yeah.
Stop the
Yeah.
count. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, at least it's peaceful. You know what? I've
Hmm.
gone on some of like I have I'm in a lot of like conservative groups because I like to fight with them sometimes. I don't do it as much because they're just like impossible, but they say a lot of racist undercover stuff and all that stuff. So I've just bit my tongue, for the past, because I had no idea how this election was going. I wasn't like the polls, I wasn't believing them, you know, but I waited till now and they're very quiet. It's an eerie quietness to them.
It is.
There's
I
some
noticed.
anxiety going
Okay,
on with
so
them.
for example, on the days leading up to to the elections, right? So I had one senator, John Cornyn, who was running, and of course he's a Texas senator, so
Mm,
he's a conservative Republican.
yeah.
And I also, my other senator, pity me, is Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
So I have Ted Cruz and John Cornyn,
Gosh. Oh
and
God.
Ted Cruz on the days leading up to the election I couldn't open my Facebook account, like the home feed, without it top posting a Ted Cruz thing, right? So it was like Ted Cruz, Ted Cruz, like every time. And I was doing all kinds of like playful things with his feeds, right? So I would go in and post like Lilith Fund, which is like an abortion, helping people fund abortions. And I would go in there and post something that would be like, here's, a mental health network or something. And that
Trolling
was,
Ted Cruz. That's what's up.
yeah, just I started using the feed for different things. And then at some point I would just try different things, like jazz it up a little bit on his feed just to see what kind of feedback I would get.
Ted Cruz is what happens if like a lawyer who chases ambulances becomes a senator. Like he seems like that kind of lawyer who, you know, hey, how'd you break your arm? Like looking for it's a
It's
sleazy lawyer. Yeah.
yeah, so it's almost like when you get, yeah, we have some fantastic attorneys that come out of Texas because we've got UT here in Austin that is like
Mm-hmm.
churns out lawyers.
Yeah.
And so what's really scary is, you see somebody like Rick Perry gets on the national stage and people are like, what a joke.
Yeah.
But here in Texas, he was just sort of representative of a lot of business interaction, right? So he was really big on getting big companies to come here, and that was his thing, which was
Mm-hmm.
very ironic because he literally spent a lot of time, energy, money courting California companies to come here and move
Yeah.
here and move their employees here. And now all you hear are complaints from conservatives who are like, these California people are just taking over the state and they're
Yeah.
voting liberal. And I'm like, what did you think was going to
What you think was gonna happen? Yeah.
happen? They would just come here and then not vote, and
And
just,
they're attracting the workers that come to Texas, people, yeah, like what do you think's gonna happen? Like,
mhm.
yeah, you get if you get people and you get education and people with money, they're gonna be smart people, they're gonna vote smart. If you want to be Mississippi, then go ahead. But like that's what you get if you want, yeah, like it I don't get that. Yeah, even
Yeah.
Trump, even our president. So for the past 4 months, he's been bashing uh uh mail-in voting, you know, and not in-person voting. He's been bashing it. Oh, it's corrupted. There's going to be corruption. Blah 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 blah. So he's been telling his supporters, vote in person. Vote
Hmm.
in person. Do not do that. It's corrupted. So what do? They vote in person, and that's what they're losing now because
Right.
they could have did the easier thing at the comfort of their home and just mailed out votes in massive numbers. But he told them don't do that.
Right.
And now he's losing to mail-in votes, Democratic mail-in
And
votes.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, hopefully what will happen is he'll file his lawsuits. They'll go straight up to the SCOTUS like really quickly. Hopefully they'll win their way. I have a feeling the courts will not um, sit on this, right? I
Not going
think
to
they'll
throw away
fast track.
votes.
Yeah.
One thing the Supreme
So,
Court is not going to do is throw away votes. Like they're
but
not
I
going to do
think
that.
I'm thinking that not even SCOTUS, because of course they're going to have to file at the venue, so they're going to have to file in the locations, right? And then it's going to have to work its way up. But I think in a case like this, the courts will tend to fast track it. So I think what they'll do is they'll go ahead and um, I think the first court is probably just going to throw it out, and then they'll appeal, and the next court will throw it out, and they'll just keep going all the way up to SCOTUS, who will eventually, hopefully, also throw it out. And
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty much, if things continue to trend like they are, and Biden gets 270, Trump can squawk, but I don't think there's anything he can really do about it. Ultimately, he's going to have to admit defeat. And
Trump. That's funny.
well, I mean, he won't have to. He won't necessarily have to admit it personally, but he
Yeah,
will eventually have to give it
well,
up.
it's reality. But
Yeah.
here's the thing with the Republicans: you're so busy trying to suppress votes, you forgot to enlighten or enlarge your votes by encouraging them to mail in ballot. You're so busy suppressing votes. That's your MO, and it fucked you guys. It fucked y'all.
They did show up though.
They did show up in yeah. Well, you got to give it to Trump. They did show up. They did show up, but there's so many people in a town full of cows, compared to Philadelphia. Cows don't vote.
But what you were asking me though about the silence, I was going to say, so Ted Cruz was posting all these things every day, like every time I open my Facebook feed is Ted Cruz. But then after the election started to go south for the Republicans, no more Ted Cruz.
Ooh, yeah.
It was like just
they're all quiet.
Yeah, and now here was the interesting thing, right? So Ted Cruz is not up for election, right? So he's just a senator. He's not up for election this year.
Yeah.
But suddenly he goes quiet. Well, he is obviously a large, big Trump supporter. And so my first thought was,
even though he called his wife ugly.
Yeah, and it just said his dad helped to assassinate Kennedy. I mean, it was like all these weird stuff. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that they're doing their powwow to get their talking points and their strategy in order. So I have a feeling that Ted Cruz is not messaging because he's not supposed to message until he figures out what he's supposed to say.
Yeah.
And that's going to come from the White House down, because it's pretty clear to me that the White House owns these senators.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You're about to lose. Like, what are you fearing from Trump at this point? Like, what are you fearing? Like, he's not going to be president after January at this point.
I have a theory. I don't know if this is for reals or not, but there's something that has always interested me, which was that when the Mueller report came out, when all this Russia stuff was coming out, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that happened was they hacked both the DNC and the RNC. But they only did the selective leaks for the DNC, and they never ever, I still to this day don't know what they pulled off the RNC servers. And I wonder to myself, do they have information on these people? And I don't know. I do think to some extent people will sell themselves out for power and for association with power. But it's like you're saying, there's something weird here, because the president's going down and they aren't distancing.
You're not far off, Tracie. You know what I think? It doesn't even have to be Russia. White supremacists. They are a lot stronger than than we think. They're in prisons. They have the Aryan Nation. They have prison gangs. They have the KKK. It's under the covers, but they're there, and their votes.
Yeah, and it's coming out from under the covers more and more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, or the sheets. Or the sheets, we should say. Yeah.
But I really just wonder, though. I mean, if you remember, there was like a time when Trump was threatening some Democrats, and he said something about like how he had dirt on them, and he could release it at any time if he wanted to do damage.
Yeah, it's the tapes. Yeah.
And I remember posting about it, and I was like, okay, so wait a minute. you're basically saying I'm the president and I have evidence of corruption or crimes by politicians in this country. But instead of taking it to authorities and reporting it or exposing it, I'm going to hang on to it and just threaten them with it.
Yeah.
Like
That means he doesn't have it.
well, but I
That
mean,
means he doesn't have it.
but I agree with you. But let's say that he did have it. What he's basically saying is he's corrupt,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to sit here and use this as leverage power and not report your crimes and not stop you from committing crimes and not stop you from your
or when he's not president no more, they can go after him. Maybe that's his leverage.
Well, I mean, they are going to go like the New York districts are.
Oh yeah, they're going to go after. Oh yeah, he's
right.
jail bound. That's what I'm saying. Like maybe that's his ace up his sleeve. Like because if he went off blabbering while he was president, I don't know. Maybe he has an ace up his sleeve where he doesn't get prosecuted. I don't know.
That would be a pretty big ace, though, because you'd have to have
Yeah.
all kinds of districts and judges and AGs and everything. And I don't think it's that far reaching. And I don't even know that this is what's going on. But there were such weird things, right?
Yeah.
So Lindsey Graham was like a big critic of Trump's.
And then they're golfing buddies. Yeah.
They go away for a golf weekend, and Graham comes back, and he is just bending the knee. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, what happened? What happened to you? It's almost like he came back with a different Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
Not that I liked him before, but he was at least critical of the president, and then he changed his tune entirely, like over one weekend. And
it could be something as big as that, or something as little as he got reelected.
They speculated that it had to do. They were like, oh well, maybe he's gunning for the AG job, but that never happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
what was it?
I was saying, just to keep his seat, he had to kiss Trump's, his ass. I don't know. I don't know. He didn't have to go that far with it. Like he could have won that state and just kept being him. He could have been a Mitt Romney.
I just hope that one day we find out. I hope that whatever is going on, one day we get the whole explanation that doesn't leave me saying, but wait, what about this? Like, doesn't really explain this. Something really weird has happened with this since 2016. There's a really good documentary on Netflix called The Great Hack about what Cambridge Analytica did, like all of the hacking that they did into the voters when they were targeting particular voters with particular messaging.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit frightening. They actually said that one of the things they were targeting for was like, I forget what it was. Paranoid ideation was what they called it.
What?
Paranoid ideation.
Paranoid ideations.
And this was how they triggered people who into action who were conspiracy theorists. And
like QAnon. I mean QAnon.
QAnon, and also like Alex Jones, people that are going to buy into this stuff. They were targeting them and activating them politically, which I think is showing up in a big way now, right? Because these people who were in the background and in the shadows and sort of just doing their thing, quietly somewhere else, like you would just kind of laugh about it, almost like UFO abduction or something. And now suddenly it's mainstream.
It's mainstream. That's
I'd like to, if I can, I'd like to warn your viewers, because there's a paper called the Epoch Times, which is put out by like a really weird little religious cult, but it's very professional looking. And one of the reasons I want to bring it up is they're running television ads that are not bad television ads. They're like just general TV ads, but they also, one of the things I noticed was I was at the grocery store one day at just like a major Texas chain here in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was checking out, at the newspaper stand, they had the Epoch Times put there, like right next to New York Times, right next to the local Statesman, right next to all the regular papers, not in the rack like with the tabloids.
Yeah, not with the National Enquirer. I mean,
right.
Or the Weekly World News. Yeah.
Epoch Times is just nothing but conspiracy crap. But it looks like a newspaper. Like when you see it, it just looks like a regular newspaper. And so the other day, literally the other morning, I'm sitting in here and my roommate comes in and says, oh, hey, I guess there's a new paper because we just got this paper delivered on the, in the front door. And he holds it up and it's the Epoch Times. And I just was like, oh, whoa.
They're sending it. They're like, they're doing the Gideons. They're doing what the Gideons do with the Bible in the hotels.
Well, if you post about this, what you'll find is that there's a lot of conservative people who are saying, like, my family members have really lost it. are saying, yes, my grandparents are reading that. My parents, that's all they look at. That, and I don't even know how this is happening because it's like some weird Asian religious cult that puts this thing out, but somehow they're getting traction. And I just want people to be aware of it because it looks like a legitimate newspaper, but it's really
Well, well,
not.
well, Tracie, as a person who's on Facebook a lot, and the foolishness that they regurgitate from stuff they see online. Like I've seen, like before the election, I've had so many friends like asking, like, I don't know about these. What did he about the can? And I said to this one girl, I was like, look, you're in the wrong place if you want information on Biden and Trump. First of all, it's the day before the election. Like you should have been like, you know, should have been studying this months ago. But at any rate, they both have bios. Read their bios. Read their policies. Read what Trump is. He's been president for 4 years. Read what he's done in 4 years. Read what Biden has done in his political career. Read journalism. It's respect. There's a lot of respectable journalism that they can be fact checked for real stuff.
Mhm.
Why are you asking people on Facebook for their opinions when all they get is their opinions from other people on Facebook or YouTube or all this nonsense?
Right.
Like, why? And that's the thing. Social media. We wouldn't have Obama if social media was as strong as in 2008. We wouldn't have had him because there'd been so much lies spewed everywhere. It would have canned them before he even became, even got
Well,
anywhere.
yeah, I mean, there already was, even without all the
Yeah,
social media, there was so much crap
it
that went
wasn't as
down.
bad as like when Trump ran. Trump only in a social media age could Trump put a one. Only in the social media age. Because that's what he does. This was he was made. See, you're from Texas. You probably seen The Apprentice, but we from New York and New Jersey know Trump very well. We know his business practices. We know him very well. So New Jersey and New York people would never go for Trump because a lot of people been screwed over by his businesses. He doesn't pay people back. Contracting Atlantic City when he had a huge hotel in Atlantic City, Trump
Yeah.
Taj Mahal. I went to Richard Stockton College. I worked in Atlantic City. I walked through there to go to work. Huge, huge hotel casino. As soon as you get off the Atlantic City Expressway, which is the highway going in Atlantic City, that's the first thing you see. Trump, big yellow lights. And that's been there for like 20 years. It's gone now. It's gone. Went under. I mean, a lot of the casinos went under.
Yeah.
But he does not pay people. He lies. He took out an ad in the New York Times blaming 5 black men for a rape they didn't do,
Oh yeah.
all for their deaths. And people saying, "Oh, Biden did the crime bill in '94 crime bill." I was talking to somebody there, like, one senator does not make a bill become a law. Did you watch Schoolhouse Rocks? Like, '94 was crime written. There were projects that the cops wouldn't even go to out here in Newark. So people were really scared of crime, and that's how it happened. But
Yeah.
somehow, all of a sudden, Biden is like responsible for black men getting locked up by himself. You
Well, but I
know?
mean, even Biden has talked about, some of his own misconceptions and apologized for mistakes
Yeah,
that he's made in the past. I
yeah,
mean, when I'm in my 70s, I'm sure I'm going to have plenty to apologize for. I feel like I do now, right? There's people that could
yeah,
tell me from my past that I would
yeah,
just have to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I'm sorry for
yeah,
what I did. I'm sorry when I made this mistake. I mean, everyone can make mistakes, and the more that you put yourself out there to serve the country, the more power that you have to affect people,
yeah,
the bigger your mistakes are, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you make a mistake, it impacts a lot of people. It's just like if you go become a surgeon, you make a mistake, that's a
yeah,
big mistake, right? It's
yeah,
not like you're a secretary and you mistype
yeah.
something.
The bigger the responsibilities you have, and the mistake you make is going to be
Right,
bigger. That goes for
right,
leaders. That goes
right.
for any leader. Like
When you
you
when
make a
you
wrong
see
decision, yeah,
when you see a politician who has an extensive decades-long career and they've never made an error, you have to ask yourself
yeah.
have they ever done anything?
You ever done anything? Yeah. What have you done?
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
The best you can ask somebody to do is to try and rectify those mistakes, or to,
yeah,
show some remorse and try to correct them. And I think what's happening now is you have the Democratic Party is far more diverse than the
yeah,
Republican Party. There's so
yeah,
much more diversity in that party. They allow for diversity. Um, I've pointed out before, for people who are like further left than the Democratic Party right now, you have the Justice Democrats that are in there that appeal to the farther left,
hmm
branches of the U.S. And I like to point out that you never see a Justice Republican,
Mm.
right? There's a reason that these particular people with this ideology that's further left than most of the Democratic Party is running on the Democrat ticket.
Mm.
Because try and run that on the Republican side and see what happens.
Yeah.
You would never even get to be, you'd never make
You
it
wouldn't.
to.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
They used to be like that. It just became, it just became us versus them, like Republicans. I would say Republicans are much easier to like galvanize because they always have the same chance. Pro-life,
Yeah. Well, you're
law and
anti
order.
everybody else,
Yeah.
right? You're
Law and
anti.
order, anti-immigration.
Yeah.
They're taking our jobs, blah, blah, blah. And that just gets them riled up. And they're all riled up behind these things. But Democrats, you gotta finesse us. Like there's so many different groups, there's so many different, ideologies, there's so many different things under the tent. It's like herding cats, it's
And I don't want to make it sound, like the way I look at it, I keep telling people on my page, and you've probably seen some of these posts, that it's going to be, after this election, no matter who's elected, it's just going to be another 4 years of plugging away, pushing for rights, right? Pushing for equity, for equality. And even if Biden is elected, it's going to mean pushing.
yeah.
But the good thing about him is that he's surrounding himself with diverse people who have different ideas, who are wanting to see, a better climate, who are wanting to see more equality and more equity in society, who actually are from communities of color, and who are women, and who are. I think they just had our first trans senator was elected, last night, and
Oh,
you're
yeah,
not going to.
I read about that. Yeah.
Yeah, try to run as a trans person on the Republican side. See what
Wasn't
happens.
there one atheist dude in Congress, an admitted atheist? I think, but he's not there no more.
I think there was someone that came out atheist in Congress.
He came out after he was elected. Yeah.
I'm not totally sure, but the point is, at least there's a dialogue. There's one side that at least has a dialogue where there are multiple voices and where you can have influence. And then there's another party that is just shutting down everything.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at, I really want to see the demographics. And one of the things I'd like to
exit polls. Yeah, I would love to see those.
Well, but what I'm curious about, right? So for example, they're saying, I haven't seen the numbers yet. And I want to see these numbers because what I'm hearing is that the Republicans are making these inroads. They got like a higher percentage of the Black vote. They got a higher percentage of the women's vote. It's like, well, first of all, I want to see this, right? But I also have to bear in mind that there were more people than ever voting now, right? So I want to know the difference. So for example, if you have the community of Black voters, right, who went 8% in 2016 for Trump, and then the rest of it was other parties or Democrats, and it was mainly Democrat votes where that community went, where your community went. And so when I'm looking at this and somebody says, well, this time Trump gets, double digits, let's just say he goes up to like 10% or 12% or something, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that he's persuaded these prior voters to vote for him. It might mean that some of these newer voters have been sucked into the system and gotten engaged by some of this propaganda. Yeah. So in other words, if you expanded, if it turns out that the communities are expanding, and they're expanding because they're being activated by some of this toxic rhetoric, then it makes sense that you're going to get a higher percentage of these, because some of these new voters are going to be going over to this other side because they have not been involved in this for that long and they don't understand the full dynamics of it.
Yeah, so, one thing about politics is that you got to know it. Like you can't just jump in at the last minute and just because we had so many armchair quarterbacks just jump into the last minute. It's like you don't know what you're talking about. Like. Like I talk to Black dudes all the time, like, oh, well, Joe Biden, what is he going to do? How is he going to make Black lives better? How is he going to do this, that? Like, first of all, I don't ever put that on one president to do that. Not even Barack Obama, who was a person of color himself, could do it. No one person can do that. Right. This stuff is like ingrained in our DNA as a country that we kick minorities down. Like that's one president is not going to do that, especially when he has a party that, wink, wink, does it, every chance they get, then it's like just ignorance from the voters. Like, we have to be smarter. We have to be, if you're gonna do politics, it's not just president the day before the election. It's your school board. It's
Mhm.
your mayors, it's your sheriffs, it's your
Yeah.
freeholders, it's your governors. It's more people running, than your president. So you not only do you check the people out on the president side and all that, but 2 years is going to be an election. There's going to be an
I
election in your
yeah.
town.
I
That-
do think a lot of people are surprised when they go in and they have this idea that I'm going to vote for the president, and then they see a ballot with all kinds of propositions and
mm-hmm,
down ballot races and races for
mm-hmm,
judges and for sheriffs and for school board and
yeah.
ISD. Here in Texas, we had quite a big problem because of our state school board a few years back. So what happened was we got these very, very activist, conservative, religious people, young Earth creationists, who
Mm-hmm,
people from Liberty University actually that ran
mm-hmm.
and made it onto the school board. And part of it was because people didn't pay attention to those elections, right? They
I
didn't.
was laughing because I was thinking about the guy. The guy got in the sex. What is it? Wasn't that the guy, the president? He got into the sex scandal.
Oh, I
Is
don't
that
know.
Liberty University?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Was it Robert's oral? Not oral.
No, his son, the preacher, the major preacher's son,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
think of what his name was, but
yeah.
yeah,
Patterson, something. Hey, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
famous televangelist.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your
well,
point.
but anyway,
Yeah.
we elected this school board that was just these white evangelical Christian nationalists that were dominionists, basically, right? They believed that the future of the United States is like the white Christian nation,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where their heads are at. And they owned our school board, and what this meant was they had power, the entire power, to dictate the curriculum to the state. So
Mm.
they took over the science curriculum, they took over our social studies curriculum, they took out sections on slavery. They changed
Mm-hmm.
the transatlantic slave trade. They actually rephrased it to the transatlantic triangle trade, and they downplayed the role of slavery in U.S. history.
Mm-mm.
And we're still fixing the textbooks that had to be revised to fit the Texas standards that
Yeah.
were just horrible, like horrible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a documentary called The Revisionaries where they actually took some cameras in and they showed the school board meetings and the school board votes. There was, I think, like one Black person, one Hispanic person on the board, and they would just, object to some of the stuff and then just get outvoted. It was like they just didn't exist, and the board was
That's.
steamrolling and putting this stuff in. And when this happened, the local paper, the Austin American Statesman, gave a huge platform, but you have to kind of wait for it. They gave this big platform to McElroy, who was the chairman of the school board, and they let him
Mm-hmm.
just do pages and pages of interviews and let him publish his own articles. And they were doing this in order to show how off the rails this guy was. So they had him in the paper saying, I would teach, creationism if I was legal to do so. And, he's saying this stuff and the paper's like, yeah, we'll print this because people need to hear that this is what's in your head.
Now,
So
Tracie, we've heard of this before, but in a different setting. Now, what were the school boards before trying to get out of the textbooks?
oh, well, they don't like evolution,
Yes, evolution.
right?
That's that. Yeah,
That's the big
yeah,
problem with science. But the
yeah,
problem with that is that it also means young Earth, right? So
yeah.
then you have to attack anything that has to do with like geology, age of the Earth, age of the
Mm-hmm.
universe, like any of the sciences. So
Mm-hmm.
it's extremely anti-science, this
Yeah,
particular brand of Christianity.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so the people saw these articles, like regular people sitting in their homes are looking at the Statesman and they're saying, wait, this is the chairman of the Texas school board saying this stuff? Like, what is this? Who is this man? And why is he in charge of the school board? They started writing and calling and kicking up a fuss to the legislators and saying, you need to do something about this. And the legislatures came back and said, you elected them. We didn't appoint them. This is not on us. Like, what are you
Yeah,
saying? What are we supposed to
exactly.
do? If you
Yeah,
want to fix it, you have to elect someone
vote
else
them out.
next time.
Vote them out. Yeah.
Right. This is on, the legislators were like, this is on you. You pick these people, not us. We have nothing to do with this.
Mm-mm-mm.
And so that was a hard lesson. The next round of votes, we did vote them out. But the problem is the curriculums that they set were in place for like several years.
Yeah, the damage was done.
Yeah.
Damage was done. And when the kid goes to college, he's behind. Like, if you think the
Unless
earth,
they go
if
to
you think that,
Liberty U,
yeah,
right? They
if
go
you
to
think,
Liberty U.
if you think they went to Africa to trade beads and go back and say, hey, those Africans are so nice, you know, and didn't take no slaves back, you're behind. If you think that the earth is 5,000 years old, you're behind. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get any kind of degree in medicine or any kind of science if you sit there and think in a college setting that the earth is 5,000 years. There are trees that are older than that. And we can count their rings when we cut them in half. It's like, all right, I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So you're not a. So were you a Bernie supporter at all? Did you support him during the?
No, I was one of those people that was. I'm an independent, so just
Yeah.
letting folks know I'm an
Okay.
independent voter.
Okay.
But I do lean Democrat because there are issues that the Republicans are just not okay with to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't really choose from that side. But I do try to keep an open mind about it. At the same.
I asked you
Oh,
because I was talking to my friend earlier, and like my other friend kept mentioning when it looked bad for Biden at one point because we were counting the in person voting. He kept saying Bernie, we should have got Bernie, we should have got Bernie, we should have got Bernie. Um, this is my thing: the far left. You know, the Bernie Bros, whatever you want to call them. I would even say the AOCs of the world. How do you think? Because my friend was telling me about the Young Turks and everything, saying Biden is the worst candidate and all that, and he barely beat, he's barely beating Trump. Actually, he's winning very slightly. He's going to win very slightly, but by a lot of states. He flipped a lot of states from Trump.
I
That's
think he's
impressive.
I think he's way more ahead on the popular vote than
Oh
Clinton
yeah.
was at this
Oh
point.
yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
way
But
so
how do you
past
think
that.
the far left? Because I won't say they are a problem, but the problem with the far left is strategy. They're all heart, but no strategy. They pretend like there isn't a Republican Party that's willing to just take over your message and just scare people with it. You know, I'm for free healthcare. I wish people can go to college for free. I wish
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I wish, I wish they could just bring up the rate for rich people and get and spread it amongst the people because they make way too much money and the get wealth cap is just crazy insane. But
Mhm.
if you do that, you're a socialist. Oh, you're Venezuela. You're a or worse. And then they go from socialist, then becomes communist, and so forth. You know how they do. They jack the message.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I
So
mean, I guess what I'm thinking is there's only one party that's going to even entertain that.
hmm,
There's one party that you can't even raise those issues. And there's
yeah.
another party where there's going to be a faction where they raise those issues,
Yes.
where you can be a
Yes.
candidate who says, I want free college and I want free healthcare, and you can run
Yes.
on a Democratic ticket and get elected.
Yes.
And you can win a primary on that with that ideology in the Democratic side and the Democrat side, and you can then go in and earn a seat in Congress because we have them in Congress. They did it.
Yes.
People do support those
You can run
messages.
on that. You can run on that, Tracy. But my issue is this: um, this country's still divided. A lot of them think as far as left. Oh, we're progressive. No, look at the election. Look at the election. We might get the Senate if Georgia, depending on how Georgia goes, we might get the Senate. Might. It's a strong might. But we actually lost House seats. People still voted red. They just didn't want Trump there.
Right. No, I think you're right.
Yeah. So we're not as far left. We're not there yet. We might have voted Obama twice and all that stuff, but people still are scared of that S word. That S word
Well,
still creeps people out.
I think it's a public education issue.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, you're
is.
not the problem isn't okay. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't want to be divisive. So there were some things that came up at the at the hangout the other night where I saw some comments that had to do with, the left or Bernie or whatever. And I just said to myself, I'm not sharing those. I'm not posting those. We're not going to have that battle.
Mm,
This tonight is about everybody being safe and just let's watch the elections and let's get through
yeah.
this. There's a lot of pain going on here and a lot of threat and people that are, um, some people were anxious and some people were
Yeah, but
dangerous.
Trace, when if Biden loses, that's would have been their chant. Should have been Bernie. That's what he did with Clinton. It should have been Bernie, or
Yeah, and
should have
I
been, would
feel
have been, could have been. Yeah.
I would agree with you that if we were able to, I mean, when you had the Lincoln Project and you have RVAT, they were able to peel off Republicans. Now there are some
Hmm.
people, I saw some people today, and they were like, "Oh no, there was more Republicans voting for Trump this time than last time." And again, you had more people voting for
Yeah.
Trump last time. And those newer voters, those newer activated voters, I'm not sure are going to fit the demographic. And there's a lot of people who were saying, wow, there's some weird trends all over the country. And I'm like, you had a lot of new people voting.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
that's going to throw things off. These are not people that are part of any normal trend.
Yeah.
But they did. I mean, let's face it, Trump pulled voters out. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a tight, this is a tighter
Yes.
race than we would
Yeah.
like to
He
see.
pulled him out. Yeah.
And
He excited him.
so part of what they damaged Biden with was that socialist label. And I
Yeah.
think
In
everybody
Florida. In Florida. In
everybody
Florida.
knows
Yeah.
that he's not a socialist.
He's nowhere near it.
But at this point, you
He's
can't
willing to
even
work for Mitch
say,
McConnell. He's willing to work with Mitch McConnell. Trust me.
I
They're
think
cool.
at this point, anything that you get as a citizen in this country that is a benefit from your tax dollars is going to be labeled socialism and evil, right? There's
Yeah.
one side that is just going to say that that no citizen should ever get anything from the country. It's all about you just do it for yourself and then you give to the society, but society doesn't owe you anything back. That's what this party, you've got a party that's saying that.
Yeah.
And then, so if you can damage if a fascist can damage a centrist candidate by saying he's socialist, I don't think going further left would have been a better scenario.
Bernie Sanders says, I'm a socialist. How about that? Cubans in Florida. That's like Reagan brought them here to escape what they felt was communism. And they equate and, I would say geniusly merges those two together like they're the same thing, socialism and communism.
Right. Cuba has an interesting history. And there's some of the people that fled Cuba were actually not, it's not even similar to what's happening with refugees that are coming up through Mexico.
Yeah.
So in Cuba, you had people that were actually affluent who were leaving because they were scared because there was an uprising of the masses, basically, and their affluence was threatened. And so this is obviously, it's not a homogenous group, and I'm not trying to paint it that way, but I'm just saying that in that group, they were not all what we would think of as refugees in the sense of people coming here with nothing that are trying to make a better life. These were people with a good life that were European descent who were pretty much owning Cuba. And then when the masses revolted, they had to leave. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's a different demographic.
Yeah, it's a different that's you know what? Remember when Biden got all that shit from a lot of black people gave him shit for what he said. He said, unlike black people, Latinos are very diverse. Now, the issue, I could tell when you say unlike, that makes it negative, makes it, black people kind of taken aback by that. But what he was saying, but we missed the point. What he was saying is Latinos, you got to stop looking at Latinos as like one group. They speak Spanish. That's about it. They speak Spanish and they're from Spanish and they come from Spanish speaking countries. Other than that, you're talking different countries, you're talking different cultures, different backgrounds, different histories.
Well, and to be honest, a lot of people that come up through Mexico into the United States don't even speak Spanish.
Yeah.
They are speaking indigenous languages, and that's the wildest thing to me is that they are Native Americans.
Yeah.
And they're coming here to the North American continent into the U.S. and we're basically saying, oh, immigrants, and I'm like, wait a minute, these are native Guatemalans. I mean, they are Americans more than you. I mean,
I think that's what I was saying. I think especially Democratic Party, we need to stop. We have to see Latinos as different, cultures and ethnicities and back. So to compare, since I'm black, to compare, I don't think if like George Floyd situation, if that happened to a Mexican person, I don't think the Latino, because they don't see themselves as one. Black people have come from a similar history in the United States. We all been through slave. Well, we like our people have been through slavery, civil rights, and all. We have that shared experience through our family and our history. Latino cultures have different shared experiences through their countries. So
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I
yeah,
will say that I would definitely side with people who say that, Biden maybe shouldn't have drawn a comparison.
yeah,
It
you
might have
shouldn't have
been
done
best
that.
if
It
he
shouldn't
would
have been
have
a
just
direct
said that the
comparison.
Latino community
Yeah,
is very diverse. The
yeah.
end.
Yeah, you
I
know what
don't,
that does though? It makes us stop talking about that bigger issue when you did that. So it was a bad choice of words,
right.
but that is true. We need to stop looking at the Latino community as one. That's one thing the Democrats I think can do. Um, so as far as race, now Tracie, I will say this about you: you do something that I like that a few of my white friends do. You listen. You listen. You realize you're white and you haven't had the experience of it. You would have no idea what it's like. You can have empathy, but you can't
Mhm.
have the sympathy of it because you have
Right.
no idea. So you listen. And you said that to me many times. I listen.
I try.
Yeah, you try. And all you can do is try, Like I'm not a woman. I've never had a period before. I have no idea what it's like to have a to be pregnant or worry about a pregnancy or anything like that. So
Sure.
my attitude is always, why the fuck should any guy even opine on abortion? No guy has that right. Unless you get pregnant yourself, then it's your turn to opine on it. Even if you're a woman and it's not your body, it's still you're not your right. But even a guy, even a man itself, you know,
Yeah,
I
I mean, you have to literally erase the woman as a person to think that you would have a right to tell her that she has to remain pregnant
you
or that
do.
she has to gestate for 9 months and put her life and health at risk.
You do.
For
And they
any,
do. That's what
yeah,
they do. That's exactly what they do. If you ever talk to an abortion, a pro-life person, they pretty much take the woman out the whole equation. It's always, oh, the baby, you're going to kill the baby. Yeah, but that baby, they don't. I got into an argument with a pro-life person. They didn't like it. And they ended up blocking me because I said this. I said, and it's true. The word is a parasite, but in science, a parasite is something that needs to live off of a host. And if you're a baby, if you can't live by yourself, you need the mother. And that mother has rights. The mother has rights to her body, you know, until when you are a citizen when you are born. That's part of the God damn it. 14th Amendment, right? 14th Amendment. Yeah. 14th Amendment. You are born. That's when your rights kick in, you know? And unfortunately, and they try to tug at your heartstring. I tell them, really, yeah, you're killing a baby. Yeah, so what? Now what?
well,
Oh,
I mean,
you kill a
yeah,
baby. That's how they get you. They tug at your heartstring. Oh, killing babies. It's not my decision. So
but
what?
you could make the same argument for somebody who's a parent who denies like blood or tissue to their own child, right? Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
needed to be a liver donor, like you can
yeah,
donate part of a liver to a
yeah,
child and still retain your liver, right? Like you only
yeah,
need a little piece to go to a baby. But a parent is still allowed to not donate a liver if their child is not viable.
Or
So
worse, or worse, you're telling a mother she can't do something to her own body. So and that kills the baby. So drinking, I can't drink a certain liquid. Like, when does it stop? Do I have to exercise or whatever? Like, I'm just a vessel now for this baby. Like,
yeah, I mean,
I'm
they're kind
nothing
of,
now.
it's almost like they're promoting the idea that women voted for gestation. Like we said, oh yes, we would like pregnancy to work this way, right? Like we had no say in
Yeah,
how a pregnancy works or how people reproduce. Like we did not
yeah,
get, women did not create that, right? It was like
yeah,
you're born, you have this capacity,
yeah,
and you didn't ask for it, you didn't create it.
yeah,
You are simply thrown into this, and they're basically, that's why people call it, they'll say there's a phrase, that it's making a person a slave to their biology,
yeah,
that you're basically saying that because you were born this way with this particular capacity biologically, you are now obligated.
yeah,
And it's like, wait,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
What? I'm
yeah,
obligated to be a blood and tissue donor and no one else
yeah,
is?
yeah.
um, but
Not only
yeah,
that. What's human life? When does it start? A sperm has
Well,
human
okay,
DNA, an egg has human DNA. So when they
yeah,
meet up, they're like the size of I think a needle. You could put it on a damn needle. That's a baby. Like that's going to be a human. What?
yeah, I'm
I'm
okay
going to jail
calling
for
that a
murder for killing that thing too. It should not like.
well.
It's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there's a human life, and then there's like what the courts called personhood,
Yeah,
right? That
personhood.
idea
Yeah,
to exist
yeah,
autonomously without violating
yeah,
somebody else's body. I don't have a
yeah.
right. I have a right. Well, I don't want to say
That's
that.
where I draw the line. Autonomy. Like if you can live outside the body, then you're your own being.
Yeah, I'm
But
not allowed to impose on someone else's body to maintain my survival.
yeah,
I
yeah,
need their consent in order to
yeah.
do that. Even if
Exactly.
it's my mother, I
Yeah,
still need her consent in
yeah.
order to have a
Exactly.
piece of
It's
her
about
liver
consent.
or a blood donation or whatever. I don't have, and they'll, anyway, that, yeah,
Oh,
that's a
Tracie,
whole
Tracie,
thing.
this is so much fun. It's going by so fast. I want to ask you if so. Like I said, I wouldn't say grow up. Atheist Spirits is what, like 10 years ago. I mean, I watched a lot of the episodes.
Sure.
You do such a great job. Is it easier? So you don't do the atheist experience no more. Is it easier doing politics as opposed to religion? Is it easier? I
It's
find it harder.
different. I think it's different because for me, it's just conversations that I'm having with people. And so I'm kind of learning and sometimes I'm teaching and it just depends on what I know or what I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike my experience with as an atheist, I mean, when you're an atheist, it's kind of that's who you are. And so if
Mm-hmm.
somebody asks you questions, you can tell them what you think about things, and that's the answer. When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to politics, there's actually knowledge involved.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. I don't have a political science degree.
Me
I'm just
neither.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm just a person in the conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a hard thing to remember that there are people that are expert, right? So you have to sometimes go, like I had somebody asking me questions recently about immigration. And they
Mm-hmm.
were saying, like, well, what about the strain that immigrants put on the system? And I'm like, what strain are you talking about? Well, because if they're going to come here, like, don't they're going to use resources? And I'm like, do that? What do you mean? Can you show me? Can you
Mm-hmm.
show me the stats? Like, what are you talking about? And they really weren't able to. They found this article about immigration in France and how they were having problems with it. I'm like, this isn't France.
Yeah. This isn't France.
And
Yeah.
we're not talking about Islam and radical Islam. We're talking about people who are coming here to work, who
Mm-hmm.
want a
Yeah.
better life, who
Yeah.
just installed my countertops, who, I mean,
Yeah.
these are people who are putting more into the economy than they're taking out. They're
Yeah.
coming here strictly to work. They are less likely to commit a crime, even if
Yeah.
they're undocumented. So
Yeah.
they're bringing down the crime rate when they
Yeah.
come here, right?
Yeah.
And it's
It-
just like they actually are really good people within the communities. I live in a sanctuary city here in Austin.
mm-hmm.
We don't. The only time you have a problem, and let me put a plug, I guess, for sanctuary cities. The only time you have a problem is when you start cracking down on illegal immigration. Part of the reason sanctuary cities
Yeah.
focus on, real crime as the metric for, okay, now we need to know, are you somebody that needs to be deported? Because but if you keep your nose clean and you come into a sanctuary city and you just work and you do your job, we don't really worry about your immigration status and whether or not you have the right paperwork, right? If
Yeah.
you're keeping your nose clean, you're not causing a problem,
Yeah.
that's fine. And so what happens though is when you start making people afraid, when you start making them afraid that the authorities are going to turn them in or deport them, then if somebody is victimized by a crime, if a woman in an immigrant community gets raped, she's not going to report that. I don't want a rapist in my
Yeah.
community. I would rather have
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
working in a
Yeah.
hotel cleaning service
Yeah.
who doesn't have the right paperwork than I want a rapist in my community.
Yeah.
I want her to be able to
We
report that
yeah,
without fear.
we should have that. We should definitely
Right.
have that.
I don't want
We
her to be
should.
afraid to bring her children to a hospital if they get sick.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want her kid to have COVID and she doesn't want to tell anyone and she doesn't want to get them treatment because she's afraid to go to a hospital because she can't speak English and she doesn't know what they're going to ask her or if she's going to get turned in. I don't want her to be afraid to send her children to school.
Mm-hmm.
I want,
Yeah.
if they're going to live here, I want that child to be educated. I want them to go to school. I want them to make sure they're having a lunch. That
Trey,
they're having
you
fun.
know it's xenophobia. It's American as apple pie. Like they need an other. They need somebody else to kick on and because you know what? If they really want to do something about illegal immigration and people coming here, they can go after the people who hire them in bulk, not just like to put your counter, the people that hire them, the farmers, the
Or
farming industry.
just recognize that there is a need for this type
Yeah,
of labor.
that's what I'm saying. It's a need, and they're not going to go after the people who supply,
right. But
who create the demand. They're not.
just find a way to make it legal, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's like serve that need, because when you criminalize them to the point that you make the problem the documentation, that just creates a whole host of worse problems that erupt from people being afraid within the community, and that you just can't have that. It makes trouble for the entire community when someone isn't accessing healthcare when they need it. I don't want some kind of a breakout in my community of some kind of an illness that could have been avoided if somebody was just felt comfortable going to a hospital. I don't want to have children in the community that are being kept out of school and left home alone and left to whatever's going on, by themselves while a parent is out working. I don't want, that woman or that man or anybody to be afraid to report a predator that's in the community. I want them to be able to come forward. It's like, I would so much rather that we just sort of say, look, this is okay. You want to come here and work, as long as you're not causing any kind of problems in the community, it's fine.
Yeah. I like I said, hope things are gonna get. I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I hope Biden does a good job. Like Dave Chappelle said about Trump, let's give him, Trump supporters, give him a chance, because we certainly gave Trump a chance, but he fucked it up the first meeting he did when he lied about his crowd size. Like that let us all okay.
I was literally one of those people who said, okay, I didn't think he'd win. He's in office. Let's give him a chance and see what he can do.
For the record,
what can he do?
As a comedian, and one of the jokes I always said was, let's give Donald Trump the same respect that they give Barack Obama when he first got elected. And once it hit the conservatives, like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And I'd like to also say that, even before I see the numbers, I almost feel like a need to, if I were able to, I guess I can't speak for everybody else, but if I were able, I would apologize on behalf of white people in this country, because I already know that we're the reason. And
no, it's not you.
We are a big part of the problem.
It's not white people. It's certain white people who are being ignorant, who are being racist. And being racist, I have so many comedian friends who are racist. They don't even know it. They say racist stuff. I mean, they're comedians, for one thing. Now, you could say something racist and not be racist. There's sometimes a joke is meant to be racist. It's meant to have that satirical element to it.
I think what you're describing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to speak for you, but like sometimes you can use racism as the leverage for the humor. It's not that you're saying something as it's ironic.
Yeah, it's ironic. Yeah, a lot of it is irony. But I also have just people that are just straight up racist, and they think it's funny. They think, because comedy is a balance of laughter. There's supposed to be a amount of laughter, but when the audience ain't laughing and they're offended, like if your audience is not laughing and they're offended, you've defeated its purpose. Like you went too far. You got to know that balance. It's not written it's not a science, it's an art. You got to know that balance. So I have a lot of comedian friends, I know a lot of people who are racist, and they don't see it, because one thing a racist person never wants to admit is that they're racist. They don't ever want to admit that.
That's why I started my I'm a racist post, right? I don't know if you seen any.
I never saw that.
Okay, so I'll do these things and I'll say like, hey, I I did this racist thing, or I said this racist thing. And it's usually when I done or said something and didn't realize that it was racist, and then someone points it out or whatever, or I get called on it, and or even if I
Yeah.
figure it out myself or something,
Oh yeah,
I'll put up a
I
post.
think we had a clash like that once. I think we did. I don't remember, but
I'll put up a post and I'll say, hey, you
yeah,
know, I did this racist thing. I said this racist thing.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
definitely will. It's weird because we think in terms of racism sometimes as if you're not burning a cross that, you know, you're not a
exactly,
racist. But it's like, no, you
exactly.
can, to me, if you are doing and saying things that support the racist system,
Yeah.
then you're doing
Oh,
racism.
how many racists, like how many people like that I talk to are Trump supporters? Like, name something Donald Trump has done as racist. I say, first of all, you will not see it even if I told you, because racism is not meant to affect you or get your reaction. And not only that, you're biased towards, whoever, Donald Trump, whoever. So even if I named all the things, you have some kind of excuse or reason why it's not racist. But you're a white person telling, but then you're going to be a white person telling me what's racist and whatnot. Like,
Oh,
that's not
yeah.
your position. But here's the thing about being a racist. A lot of people think, yeah, like you said, burning a cross on the lawn, that's the level. No, you could be racist if you have sex with a black person. You could be you could be racist if you marry a black person, if you have friends that are black, if you work with black people, if you listen to rap music or whatever. There are people that think that, I don't know, there's a racism is a thought process. It's a belief, and anybody at any point can have it. It doesn't matter. You could be the person of the race and be racist. You
Well,
could be of that
I,
race and be racist.
I think people that are like me, right? People that are in a position of privilege, sometimes it's difficult to get them to understand that that position of privilege happens because of the oppression, right? That
Yeah,
oppression that you're trying to, the oppression that you're saying you're against as a, you know, as this white privileged person, is the same oppression that has allowed you the success that you have,
yeah,
because you weren't competing with a
yeah,
demographic that you kept marginalized and unable to have the
yeah,
same opportunities.
yeah,
So it becomes a difficult thing for some people to absorb,
yeah.
because you have to look at all of the things in your life. You have to look at your job, you have to look at your house, you have to look at your income, you
Yes,
have to look at all these things, your
yes,
education, and you have to
yes.
say, would I have that if I weren't oppressing everyone
And
else?
that's another
Would
thing
I
about
have these
oppression they don't
advantages?
get. Oppression does not mean you never had hardships. I was like, oh, I did this. My daddy worked here. I had one white guy say, oh, I went to a school with black kids. They beat me up. And it was like, all right, first of all, that doesn't negate white privilege. Just because you had a bad, that does not, white privilege does not mean white people can't have a hard time or have hardships or be
Mhm.
poor or get mistreated by black people.
Yeah, or
I
even be
mean,
you could
yeah,
be targeted for being white. Like I had a
yeah,
friend that was talking about his experiences in Hawaii. And apparently there's a lot of anger toward white people in Hawaii
yeah,
in some
yeah,
areas. And he
yeah.
was, you know, in fear and having being bullied at school and stuff like that as a white person that was growing up in Hawaii. But when we looked at the, when we both sort of on the thread looked at the statistics, most of the people going to college in Hawaii are white. Most of the people making
Mm-hmm.
a good income are not Hawaiian.
Yes,
Most
yes,
of the people, you know, so it was like there
yes.
was
I
a,
hate that narrative. I hate it. If every black person decided to be racist and go again, we still wouldn't be enough. We still
right.
wouldn't hold the candle to the oppression that white people have done. Like it wouldn't even matter. We get stomped out in a minute. So yeah, don't act like
Well, it's
yeah,
about access to those levers of power,
yeah,
right? It's
exactly.
not about your internal attitude
Yeah,
or how you're
yeah,
treated on a
yeah.
day-to-day
That's
basis.
systematic. The systematic thing outweighs the personal
Right.
all the
So
time.
all you have to do is you look at the Congress and you say, how represented
Yeah.
are white people in Congress?
How
Like
much or the wealth
way
white people
more
have,
represented than
or the
maybe.
wealth, or like Donald Trump always says, "Oh, I had the lowest African American unemployment." Yeah, but even if the shit was at 4% unemployment for white people, I mean 0% unemployment for white people, it'll be like 5% for black people. That's low, but that
Okay.
gap is still there.
But
It's
not only
always there.
that, but you have to ask yourself, what does that mean, right? So
Yeah.
what employment being what? That you're working at McDonald's?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
What
that's a
is
whole nother
the
thing. Yeah.
employment, right? I mean,
Yeah. It's
are
the
you
shit
just saying
jobs
that
too.
you
Yeah.
have a job and it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you're
Yeah.
earning or whether you have benefits or whether it's
Yeah.
full time or if you're
Yeah.
working two jobs part time? I mean, so there's this, you have to, there's got to be at some point sharing of the power. There's got to be access to capital, access to control of capital, access to the means of production, access to representation, right? That you can't, we can't go on with this system where you look at Congress and you see Black citizens completely underrepresented, women citizens completely
Hmm.
underrepresented,
Yeah.
all of these demographics that do not show up in Congress, that
I
do
know
not show up in
my
government.
thing went away. I want to check. I just want to make sure nothing happened while we were talking. Let's see. Yeah, so says Biden near 270. I wanted to be like give like a live update. But it
Wait, are
doesn't
you
say.
saying that? Oh, it doesn't say that? Oh gosh,
It's,
you.
no, it says Biden. I just looked on CNN. It says Biden near 270. So they still, they're still counting votes. Or
So
he hasn't won Pennsylvania or anything like that yet.
okay, because
Yeah.
I had seen 264, but then I looked at CNN. This is before your show started, and it
Well,
was still
CNN
doing the two.
hasn't called Arizona yet, but Fox
Right.
News has. You know.
Yeah, I mean, they're being, I actually respect that some of the news outlets are being very hesitant to
Yeah, they're
call it
very
till it's
hesitant.
solid.
They
And
still have North Carolina as a toss up, but I think.
I think the states are doing a really fantastic job
Oh
too
yeah,
of dealing with the vote volume and
yeah,
I mean, they are just being so careful. They're giving
yes,
updates and being very
yes,
transparent about how they're
yes.
counting the votes and how they're,
Shout out to the
yeah,
workers who are count. I could not do that. I cannot
fantastic.
sit there and
And
just count shit like that all day. Like, oh, I go crazy.
but it's so infuriating to hear somebody attack them.
I get these are like these bless these people. Like I could not do this. They don't get paid, right? Are they getting paid? I
I think
don't
they
know.
do. I think some of them get paid, or
Oh,
they do. I think it's not much. It's like minimum wage or something,
yeah, so
but
it's like jury duty or some crap. Like, yeah, it's
exactly,
like that. Yeah,
maybe not that
you
bad, but
imagine,
yeah,
yeah, imagine if you're on jury duty for like 12 hours, but all it involved was counting. Like,
for
oh
day
god,
after day after day.
yeah, she whiz. These,
But I love the fact that they're talking about here's how we check this, and then if we have anomalies, they go through
yeah,
this process. And I mean, they're trying so hard to tell the American public we do have things in place to make sure that fraud doesn't happen. And in the meantime, you've got the president with his bullhorn screaming fraud, and
fraud, and these
voters
people won't let us
listening.
look at them while they're doing it. They got the windows closed. Oh god,
And
that,
it's so insulting. I mean, it's the same way he goes after those doctors with COVID, saying that, oh, they're
yeah.
just doing this to make money. They're just saying people die
Anything
from
that Donald Trump doesn't like or hurts him, they're bad. Like that, it's just you're no good.
what
Yeah.
he doesn't care about though is the carnage that he leaves in his wake. So he leaves these hardworking these people working at these voting venues. He doesn't care that he's like stomping all over them and just leaving them in a
He's
shambles.
trying to defile and discredit them.
Yeah,
He's
getting angry people riled up to go to their polling
yeah,
station and try to break in and chanting that they want them to stop the vote count.
yeah.
I mean, that they don't need that. They're trying to do a job here and it's a service to the nation and they don't need that crap. And then you have the situation with the doctors who are dealing with hospital bed shortages and trying to deal with the
Hmm.
COVID pandemic. And then he goes up and says, well, they're not really dying from COVID. The doctors are just making money off it. And it's like, wait a minute, these are the people dealing with the fallout of your incompetence and your unwillingness to face reality and handle this problem. And you're crapping on them because you don't like the numbers.
Yeah. Donald Trump. It all goes down to more than racist or anything like that. Donald Trump is a narcissist, and that's his worst trait. If it doesn't help him, so he's bashing the vote. I mean the voters too. He talks shit about people in Detroit and all is corrupted and all that. The whole city, American city, just trashed.
Mhm.
But that's not the first time he's done that. He trashes the vote counters, all to sow discord amongst his followers and get them mad and angry and get wrapped up in months of legal, tanglement and trials and all this shit just to decertify Joe Biden and decertify the votes and all that. And it's sad. It's sad that he's doing that, even Rick Santorum, Rick Santorum, the old,
Yes.
yeah, even he had to say, and Van Jones was like, man, Van Jones actually said, man, you said some shit there. Like I thank you, man. Thank you, brother. Like, yeah, even Rick Santorum had to call him out after he did that. Rick Santorum always finds some kind of way to kiss his ass, even if he's trying to you know, Rick Santorum called him. That's how bad it was. Like, God damn, dude, just stay in your bunker, wherever the hell you're at, and just let them count the fucking votes and deal with it later. If you lose, then do your little, but just shut the hell up, because there's nothing good you can say right now other than, like Biden saying, let them count the votes. That's all there is to it. Let them count the votes.
Yeah.
But Tracie, oh man, we went over time. All right, 9:15.
Okay.
You know what? This was fun. We got
It
to do
was.
this again. Uh, Shout outs, anything you want to shout out, anything you have going on, you want the crowd, because I'm sure I know on my page you got some listeners, but wait till I put this on podcast. But tell them
Okay.
tell them what you got
Yeah.
going
I
on.
mean, I do a casual thing on my own. It's just like a little podcast that is, they're tidbits. I mean, some of the conversations go like an hour and a half, and then some of the conversations just go like, maybe 8 minutes.
Mm,
So each week it's just whatever I feel like doing, and it's not even each week. I guess it's maybe some weeks I do it and some weeks I don't. But it's called At Home in My Head, and it's available through most of the podcast outlets. You can find it. There is there's an associated blog, Twitter feed, and YouTube channel that mirror the content, and
mm-hmm.
you can check it out and see if it has anything that appeals to you, and if not, that's fine. But it's just sort of what happens in my head that comes out in podcast form sometimes.
Okay. And also, can anybody because you had a thing, yes, like you said that you had a thing, yes, well, not, oh man, it's like years ago, the election night. You had a thing going on where people could talk if they had anxieties and stuff like that. Is there any way they can email you or something like that? Because I know people have questions, or they might have, or they might. Hey, I know you don't do the religious stuff no more, but they might have questions,
Um,
about
wow,
their,
honestly, I mean, this
about the
might
big
sound more.
questions.
I just don't do like the
Oh,
one-on-one the
okay,
one-on-one
all right,
stuff. Now, there will if they do check out the podcast or the blog, for
okay,
example, they could go and leave a comment at the blog if
okay,
they have something specific
okay,
to that content, and comments on YouTube are also welcome. Um,
okay.
as long as I would appreciate if people don't troll it. But
Yes, yes. Don't
so
troll
far,
it.
it
Yes.
doesn't. I don't get a lot of feedback. I get like very little feedback, and I'm totally fine with that, because I do the podcast sort of like I say, to get things out of my head,
Yeah.
stuff that I think that has been useful to me, that might be useful to someone else. And so I'm less interested in feedback uh, than just getting it out. But
Yeah. You know what the
if
good thing
anybody,
about having a small following is? You can just respond to everybody. Like, fuck all that 20 million viewers and all that shit. I got 3 people following right now. So if they message me, I hit them right back.
no,
That's a good
I do.
thing.
I like the idea of a small group that really, if they that likes the content. I
Yeah.
really don't
Yeah.
want a huge amount of people weighing in on, I don't like this, or I don't, and I'm not
Yeah.
interested in
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
like, here's what I'm putting out. I'm putting it out to be useful and helpful. If
Hmm.
people find it helpful, good. If they don't, I really would prefer they just move on to whatever they like.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Thank you, Tracie Harris.
Sure.
Um. Thank you, guys, for listening in on J-Lat's another podcast. Post election. Uh I want to thank you, Tracie Harris, for coming on. You were
Thank you for
great.
inviting me.
Yeah, definitely. You were great. Hey, if you weren't good, I would have wrapped this up like an hour ago. Like, all right. All right. I hear my cat has an issue here. I'd have been something, but no, you were great. This is my 4th show, and every person I had on here has been just great. And
Well,
this
that's
is,
good.
yeah. This is pretty badass. I like this. I like this.
Aw.
And you're used to it. You sat next to the great Matt Dilloney, and you went and you held your own there. Like you held. That's what like you're one of the few hosts that actually can go toe to toe, just like he did with the crazy callers and all that stuff. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I said, wow. And then now we're here. You know, this is great. This is great. Like this is great. I watched the show. I will listen to you. I like the discussions on your page and all that. And
Well, good. I'm glad.
I'm glad you're here with me. And let's hopefully we'll do this again. Hopefully, the dust will be settled and we could talk about moving on to the next, the next year and all that.
Yeah, so here's to hoping that
Yeah.
we get a result soon for these elections that we can just nail it down.
And a vaccine for COVID or something, just something to, stop the death and stop the spread. Yeah. Yeah. But on that note, I think we're good. All right.
All
Thank you,
right, well,
Tracie.
thanks. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thanks for giving me some Texas love.
Sure.
All right. Come back here to Jersey anytime.
All right.
All right, everybody. This is J-Lat. Yeah, another podcast. We're out. Have a good night.